Original what? Eitz Chaim. We're going to talk about that today. The original Eitz Chaim became this rod, became this rod. Remember the last 2 weeks? Remember the last 2 weeks? Became this rod, became this rod, became this rod. And then in number 17 it became Aaron's rod that budded. Remember? Now it winds up back in the Garden of Eden. It winds up back in the Garden of Eden. Todah Rabah Yahweh. But watch this. And over the mercy seat were the two cherubim, Genesis 3:24, of Tiferet, shadowing the speaking place or the mercy seat. Now here's what I want you to see, which right now we won't go into detail. Did you get that? Rashul says, what I want to share with you right now, I can't, because I'm talking about Yeshua being our high priest and entering the Holy of Holies, because he is the high priest and the apostle of our confession. So he's saying, but there are other things about this place, meaning the temple and the Holy of Holies, that I'm not going to go into detail. But pardon me, that for the last 3 weeks, the time has come that we are going into detail. What I've been doing for the last 3 weeks, in no bones about it, is going into detail. The detail that Paul, Rav Shaul, Rabbi Saul, he was a rabbi, you know, refused to go into detail is because the stuff that didn't fit into the context but still was fascinating was the fact that these events took place in the original Garden of Eden. And Paul says, I'm not going to go into detail now.
Wow.
Because every Jew, this was simple stuff to any Jew. Holy of Holies, holy place, outer court, the altar of burnt incense on the Mount of Olives, or on Golgotha, the head, the skull, the place of the skull. Basic Judaism 101. Basic Judaism 101.
That's right. Easy to
For a lot of you Ephraimites, it's like, oh. In all due respect, Judaism is basic. You can't even get past the first year of yeshiva not understanding this. But Paul says there are some details that I'm going to leave out. Because this place was not just any place. This was the Garden of Eden, the original Garden of Eden. Are you with me? Are we on? So, he says, we won't, about the speaking place, meaning the Tiferet, the glory, about these two angels on the veil and the doors blocking the speaking place, or the Kadosh HaKadoshim, we're not going to go into detail. That's for the later days. That's for the latter days. That's for a different time. That's for a different place. We are not going to go into detail. There was no detail to go into. If you're just talking about the layout of the temple, any designer or carpenter will tell you that's basic stuff. There are no details. Speaking place, holy place, outer court. Speaking place, holy place, outer. There are no details. It was all designed in pattern and given to Moshe. And Yahweh said, make the pattern according to what you have seen on the mountain. So what details is Yahweh talking about? The details of where that speaking place was back in Bereshit. Come on, somebody.
Come on.
So he said, I don't want to go into detail now. Now go back to Melachim Aleph. No bones about it. Part 3. I want to thank the Discovery Channel for birthing this message in me. Through their fear, doubt, lies, hypocrisy, poor archaeology, poor scholarship, I want to thank them for birthing this message in me that the Ruach HaKodesh has allowed me to teach for these past 3 weeks. So if you have a time, please send an email to the Discovery Channel thanking them for our message these last 3 weeks. Or as we say in New York, nothing but a bunch of lying mamas. Melachim Aleph. 8 and 9. Tadarabayah. Now, when the temple was built, verse 9, there was nothing in the ark. When Shlomo's temple was built, there was nothing in the ark except the 2 tablets of stone, or the tablets of the testimony. Did you get that? When Shlomo built the Beit HaMikdash, there was nothing in the ark. What was missing? The pot of manna and Aaron's rod that budded. Which way did it go? Where did it go? What happened to that remnant of the tree of life? People came to me last week and said, Rabbi, great teaching, but where's the scripture for all this stuff? All right, now I'm going to give you all these scriptures. There was nothing there. The tree of life, Aaron's rod that budded, was missing, which Moshe put there. Look at verse 9. Moshe put in the ark 2 tablets of stone, Aaron's rod that budded, the manna, when Yahweh made a brit with the children of Israel, our people, when they came out of the land of Mizraim. What happened to the rod that budded almonds? What happened to that rod? In other words, by the time Solomon builds it, it's missing. But it wasn't missing in the days of Melech David. By the time his son gets around to building the Beit HaMikdash, it was missing. Someone took the rod of almonds. Someone took the rod of almonds. Let's find out who. Go with me to 2 Shmuel. Well, wait a second. Wait a second. Okay, let's read that again. There was nothing in the ark except the 2 tablets of stone which Moshe put there at Horeb when they came out of the land of Mitzrayim. Oh, to God by Yahweh. 2 Shmuel. Is anybody enjoying?
Amen.
2 Shmuel 15. 2 Shmuel. Shmuel Beit. Shmuel Beit 15. To God by Yahweh. 15:30. And David went up the ascent of the Mount of Olives and wept. He was running from the insurrection of his son Absalom. He wept as he went up with his head covered. Well, Rabbi, don't you know that them Jews put on a yarmulke in Babylon? It's not in the Bible. We're not supposed to wear a yarmulke. A man's not supposed to pray with his head covered. So quiet now you can hear a pin drop. And he went up the ascent of the Mount of Olives, and he went barefoot. And all the people that were with him, every man covered his head. And what were you saying about men not praying with their head covered? Every man went up with their head covered. You say, well, Rabbi, that's not a skull cap, that's a full head covering. Okay, no problem. Where is it? Where's yours? And they went up weeping as they went up. And one told David, look, Ahithophel is among the conspirators with Absalom. And David said, oh Yahweh, I make tefillah to you, turn the counsel of Ahithophel into foolishness. And it came to pass when David was come to the top of the skull. The Hebrew word is harosh, or mistranslated in most translations, the summit, the top of the mountain. What mountain? Verse 30 tells you. 2 Samuel 15:30 says, he went up running from Absalom. He went up the ascent, or go up the Mount of Olives. What Mount of Olives? He came to the top of the mountain, verse 32, and the top of the mountain, the Hebrew word is Harosh, or the skull. This is the first reference to the Mount of Olives being called the place of the skull in the Bible. Does it get any better than this? And it came to pass when David was come to the skull, there he worshipped Elohim. Why? Because that's where Adam's altar was built when he was thrown east out of the speaking place. Because that's where Jacob and Abraham and Isaac set up their altar. That's where Abraham was going to slaughter Isaac on the Mount of Olives in the land of Moriah, on one of the mountains that I will show you, saith Yahweh. So intrinsically, David knew where to worship Yahweh. He didn't need anybody to tell him. He climbed the Mount of Olives in 2 Shmuel 30 through 15, 30 through 32. He climbed the Mount of Olives until he came to the skull, or the summit, or the Rosh, Harosh. The Aramaic word for the top is Golgotha, the place of the counting. And it is called the skull because that is where the worship of Yahweh moved when man was thrown out from the west. They were thrown east into the land of Eden, but out of the Garden of Eden. Talk to me, somebody. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. So where did David worship? The same place all Israel worshiped. Harosh, at the place of the skull, the Mount of Olives. And David went there and covered his head and worshiped Yahweh. Isn't that beautiful? He went to the skull, the summit. And we learned last week another reason it was called the skull. And we'll rehash it a little bit this week. But I want to bring your attention back to what we just read in Melachim Aleph, 1 Kings 8 and 9. What was there in the ark that Shlomo put in the Kadosh HaKadoshim? Zero. The only thing that was there was the 2 tablets of stone, or the 10 commandments, or the what? The tablets of testimony. The rod was missing, and the pot of manna was missing. So apparently, listen, it existed when David had the ark and brought it down to Jerusalem, but in the rebellion of his son Absalom and Ahithophel against his monarchy, against his throne, David took out the branch, or Aaron's rod that budded, into almonds, the original tree of life, and guess what he did? He worshipped Yahweh with that branch, and Solomon, his son, could not find it. It was missing. Why? Because David had transplanted it at the place of the skull where Adam was buried, where all the patriarchs of Israel worshiped Yahweh. And by the time Shlomo takes the tabernacle down the Mount of Olives into the Temple Mount, it is missing because it was planted on the skull. It would one day grow up to hold someone we all know very well. David took the rod of Moshe, the remnant branch of the tree of life, the Etz Chaim, and planted it on the summit, or the head of the Mount of Olives, which is in Aramaic, Golgotha. It is on the top of the Mount of Olives where it would grow back into the tree of life, where one day Yeshua HaMashiach, Adonenu, Zichrenu, Goalenu, Va'adonenu would hang, because it was fit that the Prince of Life should hang on the tree of life. When the word of Yahweh talks about Yeshua dying on a tree, it's not a metaphor. It's literally, he was hung on a tree. Was there a crossbeam? Sure there was. And that's why we have all these fights on the internet. Some people say, well, brother, I want you to know. The Greek word isn't cross, it's stake. And then the testigos de Jehovah go, buenos dias, hola, hola, hola. No cruz, pero the Greek word is staros, baby. He didn't die on a cross, he died on a stake. Sounds good, doesn't it? The only problem is the Brit Hadashah wasn't written in Greco or in Romano. It was written in the Hebrew sister language called Aramaic.
Amen.
And the word in Aramaic is, ready for the shock? Tree. So what did he hang on? He couldn't hang on a leaf. He couldn't hang on an almond bud or a nut. Yes, they nailed his palms or his wrists to a crossbeam, but they put the crossbeam on the tree. That's why some people say he was nailed on a cross, because everybody knows it wasn't a cross. Then some people say he was nailed on a stake, because it wasn't really a stake. It was a crossbeam nailed to the tree of life. Where else? Where the first Adam died. And the first Adam was buried. Where do you expect the second Adam to establish life? In the place of death of the first Adam. Because as in Adam all die, so in Mashiach, the second Adam, shall all be made alive, somebody. For as the offenses came by the first Adam, the justification unto life came through the second Adam. That tree was planted at the Rosh, the summit, Golgotha. That branch would become the tree, it was transplanted to become the tree of life, where Yeshua would hang. So when Solomon built the temple, the rod was missing. Why? It was transplanted on the Mount of Olives, Adam's skull, the top of the mountain, Adam's skull, by King David, where the skull of the death of Adam number 1 would be crushed by the tree of life. The skull of Adam number 1 lay there buried on the summit or the Harosh of the Mount of Olives. David ran up the Mount of Olives to worship Yahweh. And before he allowed the Shlomo to take the Ark of the Covenant into the temple, he took out the tree of life and he did what Yahweh did in the Garden of Eden. It says he caused all the trees of the Garden of Eden to come up through the ground, but the tree of life, the Hebrew says, the Hebrew word doesn't say grew, it was planted. We say that every Shabbat. Plantado, vida, what? Eterna, en entre de nosotros. Plantado, isn't that what we say? He planted it. And so the tree of life was planted by Yahweh in the garden, and it was planted again on the Mount of Olives by David. And that's why it was missing. That's exactly why it was missing. So the skull of Adam would be crushed by the tree of life, where the second Adam hung. And that is also why Yeshua is... Where is it written that Yeshua HaMashiach is the netzer, or the tzemach, the branch? The Hebrew word for branch is the Hebrew word tzemach. He is the branch of David.
Wow.
That's not just a metaphor. He literally hung on the branch of David, thus being the descendant of David, hanging on the branch of David. We read that a million times in Scripture. Yeshua HaMashiach is the tzemach, or the branch of David. That's right. In more ways than one. He is the descendant of David, but he is also the branch of David, meaning the tree of life. Is anybody getting this? Am I preaching to the choir? Choir? The only problem with our congregation. It's so small, there is no choir. You're the choir. I'll be your choir. Turn to your choir and say, you the choir.
Wow,
We are the choir. So, Yeshua was the seed of David, hanging on the branch of David. I'll say that again. Don't try me. Yeshua, for you, just for you, Bubala. Yeshua was the seed of David, hanging on the branch of David. So obviously, he's the one chosen by Yahweh to hang on the branch of David, and that was the tree of life. So he was, not just metaphorically, but literally, the branch of David. Todara Bayah. You want more proof? That the Garden of Eden was in fact formerly or initially on the Temple Mount? Very good. In the Makom Kadosh, or what later became the Hekel, the inner court, not the speaking place, not the Kadosh HaKadoshim, the inner court, was the menorah. What's this? Menorah. Everyone knows this is a menorah. The menorah has 7 branches made up of what? What were these 7 branches made up of? Symbolic of. And these cups. We read about the cups. The 7 branches represented 7 almond branches. The bowls represented the 7 almonds. Aaron's rod that budded, Moses' rod, the original tree of life, transplanted and moved around and so forth and so on. But Yahweh put it in the same place it was originally. The tree of life was where? In the speaking place, in the Garden of Eden. And Yahweh said he didn't just put the menorah anywhere in the land of Israel or anywhere in the land of Judea. Where did Yahweh put the menorah? Exactly where the Garden of Eden was. Remember, he warned Moshe. He says, what you're doing in the wilderness, in the Ohel Moed, is a temporary dwelling until we get to the place that I will show you. When we get to the place that I will show you, make sure, just like in the wilderness, you make all things according to the pattern. Why was it so important to make everything according to the pattern that I will show you on the mountain? Why was it so important? Yahweh was trying to show mankind the way back to Eden. That this is where Eden was, and this is the way back to Eden. So he put the menorah, the same place he put the 2 cheruvim, the same place he called the speaking place. What a coincidence! A speaking place with 7 almond branches, with 7 almonds budding from the tree of life, with the 2 cheruvim on the mountain. Ezekiel 28, Satan was on that mountain. There was only 4 people in the Garden of Eden. Yud He Vav He, S period A period Tan, and Adam B'Chava. There were only 4. And Yahweh said to Satan in Ezekiel 28, 13, and 14, you were in the Garden of Eden on the mountain of Yahweh. There's only one place, Bethel, that's the mountain of Yahweh, and that is in Yerushalayim, the place of the Temple Mount. The place today where Islam is fornicating through their blasphemous buildings against the Most High Yahweh. Boy, I want to be in their shoes when Yeshua comes.
That's right.
So the menorah, the 7 almond branches, and the 7 bowls, almond bowls, was in the holy place, but don't miss this now, before the speaking place. In front of the speaking place. Where was the tree of life? In the Garden of Eden? In front of the speaking place. Are you getting this, or are we running? Do you need a degree in carpentry to understand this?
Yes, sir.
In front of the speaking place was the tree of life.
That's right.
As it was, so it is, and so it shall be again. When Eden is restored. Thus Yahweh indicates to us that the menorah itself, with its almond branches and almonds, is in fact a replica of the tree of life that once stood at that exact spot. Can you imagine this? Where the menorah was in the ancient temple was the exact spot, not in the general location, was the exact spot of the tree of life. Yahweh was spot on, as we'd say in the UK. Yahweh was spot on, as we'd say over the English Channel. You want to know where the tree of life was? He shows you the mountain. The cherubim are there, guarding the way back to Eden until Yeshua's return and setting up of his kingdom. And where the menorah stood was the exact spot of the tree of life. Where did the menorah stay? In the Hekel. What veil did I tell you earlier in this message? What veil was torn and what doors swung open? the veil leading into the Hekel, the doors, the Nicanor doors, the Nicanor gate, leading into the Hekel, so that man can return to the menorah, the actual tree of life. We don't have to wonder what the tree of life looked like. This is exactly what it looked like. We use it in our homes. We use it in our services. We use it in our worship. We use it in our devotions. We use it in our meditations. We use it in our introspections. We use it in our love and our devotion and our seeking of Yahweh. It is always set before us and is evidently set before us. The menorah is the tree of life. Yahweh didn't leave us guessing. He even showed us the place it stood, and Yahweh ripped that veil to the Hekel, to the Makom Kadosh, so we can see right into the menorah. Everybody on the Mount of Olives, east of the Temple Mount, that looked down into the Hekel or into the Makom Kadosh would see the lights of the tree of life. Oh, Todah Rabah Yahweh. But in order to see the tree of life, where did you have to go first? To Calvary. The only place you could see the tree of life in Yerushalayim was planting yourself at the summit, Harosh, Golgotha of the Mount of Olives. So the holy place was perfectly laid out, but the Holy of Holies was barren. There was nothing there except the ark, the 2 tablets of testimony. Are you getting this? Todah Rabah Yahweh. Now go with me to Bereshit 3:15. Is anyone enjoying? Amen. Now listen, I'm standing for you today. I'm not sitting, so you have to enjoy. You have to. I'm standing, I'm schwitzing, I'm laboring in the void and in doctrine.